Thank you so much. So everyone, welcome back to day three. Officially, concept-wise, we are talking about day two, but yeah, let's get started. So yesterday we were talking about the basics of blockchain, and then we understood some basic concept. Today we'll continue with consensus as Manda mentioned, and then subsequently we'll move towards Bitcoin concept. So basically, what is consensus? See, one thing very important which we discussed yesterday is in the blockchain network, we don't want a central system, right? And that's the idea behind blockchain. We don't want anything in between. Now that's where the problem starts, right? When you don't have a third party in between who will say that is it correct or wrong, how will you have a system which is autonomous and all the nodes in the network, let's say if we are in the network and we are doing transactions, how can we come to a consensus that this is the final data? And that's the word consensus, right? It's something we agree to. So if you talk about the definition of consensus, this is how it looks like. So consensus is a process of achieving an agreement between nodes on the final state of the data. So example, if I own 50 rupees and then let's say Rajesh owns 150 rupees here. I don't know why, Rajesh, you always come on this screen. So Zoom is promoting you here. Maybe you keep your camera on, maybe that's why.
Thank you.
So yeah, so let's say Rajesh has 150 rupees, I have 50 rupees. So who is responsible to maintain this consensus for all the nodes? And that's where we have different consensus algorithm available. Now, based on different blockchain, they are using different algorithms. Again, we'll discuss this algorithm later. What is POW, what is POS, but then we have different options. We have POW, which is proof of work, currently used by Bitcoin. POS is proof of stake. It's coming in Ethereum 2.0, also called Serenity. I'm still waiting for it. Then we have POET, which is proof of elapsed time. I guess it is used by Sawtooth, if I'm not wrong. It's one of the blockchain by Intel. Then we have POH, which is proof of history, which is used by Solana. And then we have POC, the proof of capacity. I guess it deals with the hardware capacity. Again, all these things will make
proof of concept.
Sorry?
Proof of concept, I think.
No, in this case, this is proof of capacity, the consensus algorithm. So example, when you talk about proof of work, it deals mostly with your CPU time, right? Or GPU time. Proof of stake deals with how much stake you have in the system. Proof of capacity deals with the hard drive space, how much hard drive space you're committing to the system. But again, we'll discuss why do we need this algorithm later. As of now, remember that we need to use some consensus to have that agreement for all the nodes that this is the final state of the data. Okay, not everyone should have a different data, right? If I say I have 50 rupees, then in all the nodes on the network should have the same thing, that Naveen has 50 rupees. That's just final state of the data. Okay. Then question arises, if you're talking about all those things, one of the questions somebody asked yesterday is blockchain only related to cryptocurrency? And that's not the main answer, right? The only thing is it's very famous, and that's why everyone talks about cryptocurrency, because everyone loves money. But then what I'm very fascinated about is the way you can do banking in future. So there's a concept of DeFi, which we'll discuss later, which is decentralized finance. Bank is not only providing you one feature. Of course, we love to do transactions on using bank, but bank is not providing only one thing, right? They are providing multiple things. Example, you can do transactions using bank. Bank also give you loans, and we have not talked about loans yet, right? I mean, of course, with the help of cryptocurrency, you can only transfer money. Like Bitcoin, it's only for transaction. Just because Bitcoin provides a transaction, we can't say, hey, we don't need you, bank. And bank will say, okay, then who will give you loans? So basically, we want to implement a software system, or we want to implement a system on the blockchain network using which you can also receive loans from other people. How about insurance? How about, okay, what are the features you get from banking? I know about insurance because I have one for my house EMI. What else you have? Loans, yeah, fixed deposit.
Insurance.
Yeah, insurance, fixed deposit. What else to get? Okay, I'm not able to recall now. So let me know if in the chat window if you find some banking related things which we require. So all those things we can implement with the help of blockchain. There's something called D5. Of course, you don't have to actually wait for this session. You can just go to Google and search for D5, which stands for decentralized financing. Okay, someone says ATM. Oh, okay, right. There was a Bitcoin ATM. I'm not sure if it's still working. Okay, policies, right? Okay, derivative stock,
Credit card facility.
the credit facility, right? Yeah. So we basically want all those features in the banking. What else we need? Supply chain. In fact, we have talked about it right before. One of the problem in the internet world is the trust factor, right? So normally we don't buy certain things from the unknown websites because we don't know we will receive the original product or the counterfeit product, right? Even if you receive an iPhone. In fact, I remember 2 years, 1 year, last year, I guess, I bought a Samsung charger. And then I was having this doubt, is it original or because I bought it from different website. So I went to a website to search, how do you find a duplicate product? So, there were some images, how to compare the Samsung charger. If there should be the proper space between A and S, and I was verifying it. Ultimately, it was a original product, but then just because I bought it from some other website, I was not trusting that website. Yeah, if we could have bought it from Amazon, I don't doubt Amazon ever. I mean, if I receive an iPhone from Amazon, I know it's correct iPhone, right? Because that's how they build trust. But how about the products which you eat, the food products? What about all the things which you consume? So we want to make sure that whatever you're receiving, maybe in the world of medicines, pharmaceuticals, I have read an article somewhere that the lot of medicines which you consume are actually counterfeit medicines. I'm not sure if it is happening in the cities or somewhere, but we are receiving counterfeit medicines. The one way to track it is with the help of blockchain. If we know that the particular QR code or the particular barcode is coming from the manufacturer, we can track that barcode from manufacturer to the customer, and we can verify if it is original or not. Okay, that's something is also possible. What else we can do? We can also achieve, we can also use blockchain for healthcare. My example, we can share all the medical information between all different hospitals, right? In fact, yeah, so the insurance can also be part of a banking here. We can also use blockchain for advertisements or data sharing. Example, let's say I'm actually okay to share my data with Facebook. Example, what I like, what are my qualifications, which company I'm working for, who is my favorite actor, and of course, Facebook knows all my data. The only problem is Facebook is using that data to earn money from the advertisements or from the advertisers, right? I'm actually okay even if Facebook share my data with the advertisers, provided Facebook pays me 50% of it, right? So what if Facebook says, okay, I'm earning, so with your data, I'm earning 100 rupees from this advertiser. Give me 50 rupees, you take 50 rupees, I'm okay with it. So we can also achieve that thing from blockchain. How exactly is because in blockchain, who will own your data? Because we don't have a central server in between. You will be owner of your own data. So if someone is asking for the data for the advertisements, you can just give your data and you will get paid for it. So basically, we are not just changing a banking technology, we are changing the entire ecosystem, how things works, right? So again, there are a lot of possibilities with blockchain. This is something which I see in the market. If you have some more use cases with you, please let me know in the chat window, or we can have we will have a discussion time. Okay, now even before going forward, let's also talk about the double spending problem. We were supposed to talk about this before, but I thought let's discuss here. Okay, so the problem is, in the physical world, whenever you have something, let's say if you have maybe you have a remote here and you want to sell this remote. Of course, you can sell this remote only once, right? Because this is physical product. So if I give it to, let's say, Amarjit here, I hope that's your name, Amarjit. Yeah. So if I give this product to you, Amarjit, of course, this is gone now. I can't sell the same remote multiple times. But what about an image? What about a photo? So if Amarjit says, hey, Naveen, I want that photo for 100 rupees, so I'm okay. I will say, okay, I will send you that photo on WhatsApp and you pay me 100 rupees. But it's also possible that I will sell the same photo to Rajesh as well, or to Mandar as well. And that is double spending. I'm sending the same thing multiple times. It's very difficult to control that in the virtual world. And that's why the virtual currencies were not famous. But then with the help of blockchain, we can solve that. And the first implementation for this solution was Bitcoin, right? So what is Bitcoin? So Bitcoin is basically a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, which simply means you don't need a bank in between. If I want to send you money, it's peer-to-peer. I can just get you your Bitcoin address and send money. We don't need a bank in between. Also, it is developed by a person. Again, we have talked about it, but just to have it on the PPT, it's developed by Satoshi Nakamoto. Again, we had a good discussion yesterday about this person. Is it a real person or a pseudonym? Multiple theories, but doesn't matter. It's developed by someone and we are using it. And it's good that we don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. And then, so we can actually understand Bitcoin in multiple ways. We can say Bitcoin is actually a cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is also a network, and Bitcoin is also a software, or we can say a protocol. So when you say Bitcoin in general, it can be anything. Example, if you go to YouTube and if you search for Bitcoin tutorial, most of the videos only talks about Bitcoin as a currency, because we all love money, right? So in fact, I was going through some videos on YouTube just to get some new points, and then I searched about what is Bitcoin, and then everyone talks about only currency. No one talks about the software. No one talks about the network, because they are not from technical background, and we are the, what you say, the aliens, right? We are from the tech world. So we'll not talk about the currency because everyone knows about it. We'll talk about the software and the network. But still, since the currency part is there on this slide, now Bitcoin is called a cryptocurrency is because it's a currency. You can say currency, but and it also works with the help of cryptography. There are a lot of crypto things happening behind the scene, and that's why it is called cryptocurrency. Now, how exactly those crypto thing works, again, we'll talk about that later when we talk about PKI. Now, the current price of Bitcoin is 45 lakhs approximately. It will keep changing. This is only for beginners. If you know it, ignore that point. But for the beginners, one Bitcoin will cost you 45 lakhs, right? And the price is changing. It's very, very volatile. So what makes Bitcoin so much? I mean, what makes the price of Bitcoin so high? Is it depend upon a gold price? Does it depend upon some commodity? Actually, no. It's all depend upon the supply and demand. You know, the stock, how stock market works. Whenever you buy a stock of a product, the price will go up. That depends upon the demand, and the price will go down depend upon the demand. If there's a less demand, the price will go down. If everyone starts selling, the price goes down. If everyone start buying, the price goes up. The same thing is happening with Bitcoin. I hope you will remember in February, I guess, Elon Musk started with a tweets, right, regarding Dogecoin.
Yes.
Yeah, the price skyrocketed because everyone started buying Dogecoin just because of that one tweet. So that's how the price goes up. If everyone starts buying that, the price goes up. And suddenly, he also announced that they will accept Bitcoins for Tesla. I mean, if you want to buy Tesla,
They will they deny transaction for the Tesla with the Bitcoin actually. So Bitcoin got price got a decrease actually.
exactly. But initially they mentioned that they will accept. So price went up, and they said because of some issues they can't accept Bitcoins. Price went down. Again, they are saying that they will accept Bitcoins, but let's see. I'm not sure if they have accepted it, but yeah, that's how the price goes up and down. I'm not a big fan of this crypto market. I do some investment, but not a big fan of it. I don't feel the volatility will be there for a long time. We have to come to a consensus that we have to use this particular currency, and it should not be that volatile. In fact, most of the people, They're not even using Bitcoin as a currency. They're using it as a commodity. They just invested in Bitcoin and they're not doing transactions, right? Uh, but then what if you want to buy a Bitcoin? Do you have to actually have 45 lakh rupees to buy a Bitcoin? Not exactly. You can divide Bitcoins into small units, which is Satoshis. So one Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis. So instead of buying the entire Bitcoin, you can buy some Satoshis, which I have. I don't remember how much Satoshis I have, but not the entire Bitcoin. But one day, I know you all will donate Bitcoins to Telusco. Right. Okay, so that's the cryptocurrency part. Let's talk about the software. Now, this is where I'm very fascinated about the Bitcoin technology, because behind it, we have blockchain. So when you say it's amazing software, it's because the entire Bitcoin network. So the Bitcoin network is basically a network of nodes, right? So example, if I'm using Bitcoin, so I'm one node. If you are using Bitcoin, you are one node. Of course, your machine is one node, not you. But if you connect all these nodes, all these computers, that's one network, right? And the entire network is autonomous. You don't need people in between to accept transaction, to reject transaction the way you have in banks. Example, I bought something on Flipkart 2 days back, and then I realized I don't want that. Now I canceled the product. When you pay something online, the money get deducted instantly, right? But when you cancel something, you will get refund after 3 to 4 days, and it hurts. It's my money which you kept on hold there, because there are people who are accepting transactions, who are saying refund, but we don't want that, right? We want everything to be autonomous. And that's what Bitcoin network provides you. So when you transfer money, everything is autonomous. Okay. So basically, Bitcoin is a network, and it's also a protocol which is automatic. And when you transfer money, it goes there. Now with Bitcoin, we have one more word. Now this specifically talks about the currency part of it. Now, where do you store your currency? Example, when we use Paytm, when we use Google Pay, or any particular wallet. So basically, we store our money in the wallet, right? Now, this is where Bitcoin wallet is a bit different, because in Bitcoin wallet, you don't actually store a currency, you store an address. Now, how you generate that is a different thing, but basically you store an address. Now you can track how much money you have with that particular address from the network. So from the entire blockchain, you can see all the debits and credits, and you will find your value. But what if you want to have a wallet here? So you can use any kind of wallet. You can use desktop wallet. Again, before going ahead, I just want to point out one more thing. Maybe somewhere we are getting carried away from for the public blockchain. The course is actually focusing more on the private blockchain. So we want to go more there, okay? So that's why on the public blockchain, we'll not be focusing much time. But these are good to know concepts. It will help you to understand the private blockchain better. And you can appreciate private blockchain after all these things. Okay, so let's go back to the wallet. So there are different types of wallet available. We have desktop wallet, we have mobile wallet. So desktop wallet is an application on your desktop using which you can control that. But if you want mobile, you can use that. You can also use it a web tool, or what you say, web app. We can also have a hardware wallet. The problem with the mobile and desktop is, so your address is actually controlled by a private key. So there are two keys, private and public keys. Public key, as name suggests, is known to everyone. Private key is only you know your private key. It's like your password, right? So maybe your email address is your public key and your password is your private key. Everyone knows your public key, but no one should know your private key, right? But if someone knows your private key, that means they will own your wallet. So that's the issue with the desktop wallet and mobile wallets. So if you want to have a more secure way, you can buy a specific device, which is hardware wallets, which you can connect with your system with USB cord, and you can use it. But again, if you have a lot of Bitcoins with you, you can do that. Otherwise, to store around 10, 15 Satoshis, I think mobile wallet is good. That's what I own. You can also use paper wallet. I think it's also called cold storage, if I'm not wrong. Let me know in the chat window if paper wallet is also called cold storage. Or maybe hardware wallet is also called cold storage. So this is where you have your wallet, but it is not connected to the network. So you write everything on paper, your addresses. In the hardware, you store your addresses on the hardware, which is disconnected with the system. Does it make sense? If it is disconnected from the machine, from the network, no one can hack it. That's the idea behind it. Okay. So those are the wallets. Now let's talk about the Bitcoin nodes. So basically we have different types of nodes in the Bitcoin network. We have full node, lightweight node, and mining node. We'll talk about mining node in some time. Let's talk about the first two, full node and lightweight node. So one of the questions yesterday was, if you are a part of a network, and if you say you are the node, and we also mentioned that you have to store the entire blockchain on your machine, and you got scared. I don't have that enough storage. I'm still using 256 GB of hard drive in my machine, which I have in my case. If you buy MacBook Air, I guess that's the storage you get, right? 256 GB of hard drive. Not sure, maybe the old one. So if you are using a Bitcoin wallet, if you want to be a Bitcoin node, you don't actually have to be full node. So full node basically means a system which stores the entire blockchain, entire Bitcoin blockchain. But if you think you are using a normal machine, you're using a mobile phone, then you can use a node which is a lightweight node. Now, what's the difference between full node and lightweight node? In the full node, you store the entire blockchain. In lightweight node, you only store the header of the last block. That's how you verify. Okay. The only thing is, in the entire network, if you are the lightweight node and you don't have a full blockchain with you, so you have to make sure that you're connected with the full node to get the entire blockchain. So what if you need to verify? Then you can simply connect with a full node to get the recent blockchain for verification. Okay. Everyone good with this? Let me know if you have any questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Any questions, anyone? No?
Is this are these nodes types are specific to Bitcoin, or this we are following every currency is following the same pattern?
No, they have their own types. They might be having their own types. It's specific to Bitcoin. In fact, we can also divide this into multiple parts. In fact, I heard that full nodes, we also have super full nodes. So the difference between super full nodes and full nodes are, full nodes store the entire blockchain. Super full nodes also, or they're called super nodes, I guess. So they also store the entire blockchain, but they are available for maximum time, maybe 24 hours or 24/7. But full nodes might not be available for the entire time. So this is specific to Bitcoin, but different blockchain can have different implementation, different types of nodes. Okay, Atul says, I'm still confused with a blockchain concept. Can you still explain? Okay, so what exactly you're not getting in nodes? If you can be.
Actually, I'm not getting what this full node, lightweight node, and mining node. I'm totally confused in all this.
Okay, okay, let's go with this. So you got the word node, what node means?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, so node is basically a computer in the network, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Now you want to use Bitcoin, or you want to transfer Bitcoin, you want to receive Bitcoins.
Okay.
So that means in your machine, you need to have your machine need to have a software of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The moment you install a software of Bitcoin, you become a node. Now you have a choice that you want to be a full node or you want to be a lightweight node. Now, why you will make that choice? The problem is, if you say you are a full node, what it means is Bitcoin, there's a Bitcoin blockchain, right, in the network?
Yeah.
So in your machine, you have to store the entire blockchain.
Okay.
which will be huge. And if you are able to store that, that means you're a full node.
Okay.
And also, before saving that on your machine, you will validate the entire blockchain. So that means you need processing power.
My
and you
system
also
need-
need,
My
yeah.
system need to validate that.
Yes, verifying the transactions are easy.
Okay.
It will not be that much of CPU. It will not consume that much of CPU. But your machine should be capable of verifying the blockchain, and also it should have enough storage. But if you feel you don't want to be a full node, you don't want to store the entire blockchain, then you can say you want to be a lightweight node, which means only the last block header will be stored.
Part
so
of it.
so we
part
can
of it.
say that MetaMask, that is a web extension, or some mobile application which are providing a wallet facility, they
Right.
are lightweight nodes. We can consider them as it is.
Right.
Okay.
Perfect. Example, when you use a banking application on your phone, that's a lightweight banking application because you don't have all data on your mobile phone. You have to request for the data. Right? But if you use something like Tally on your machine, which stores all the information about the transactions, so that you become a full node. For normal traditional application. You heard about Tally software?
Yeah, I heard about it.
Yes.
Cool. So this makes sense, right, Atul, now?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, perfect. And now we have the third one, which is mining nodes. So first of all, why do we need a word called mining here? And to understand this, let's talk about how Bitcoin works. Of course, we'll not be going in detail here just to talk about the overall stuff. Let me just stop this screen share so that you can see my face. And we can switch to speaker mute. Okay. In fact, I want to see everyone's faces, not my face. Okay. Okay, so let's try to understand how Bitcoin works here. In fact, yesterday we went for one example, right? If I want to send 100 rupees to Rajesh, let's go with the same example here, right? So let's say if I send 100 rupees to Rajesh, so I'm a sender, Rajesh, you're the receiver, and then the amount is 100 rupees. The moment we do a transaction like this, if we both agree to this transaction that we want to establish this transaction we want to be stored with everyone on the network. So how many nodes we have in the network? Let's say 10 nodes. Okay. So this transaction should be stored on all the 10 nodes. Now there is a problem. We don't want to store one transaction. We want to store the bunch of transactions. And where we are going to store that? So let's collect
In
all
wallet.
the transactions.
On
Sorry.
each node.
In
No, no.
wallet.
Okay. Let's go step by step. Okay. So we'll take all the transaction and we'll put in a block, right? Okay. Now, once we got a block here, in fact, I'm just oversimplifying stuff because we're not talking about mempool here or all the other stuff, just to keep it oversimplification of the concept. We have all the transaction and we store that in a block, right? Now, how will we know that whatever block we have created is actually correct? Who is going to verify that transaction? So we have 10 nodes. Who is going to take the responsibility? Now, of course, if everyone start doing that, maybe we'll not be achieving consensus. So we'll elect a leader. So every time, normally when you have multiple peers in the network and when you don't have a server, so in the peer-to-peer network, normally we do this thing called, we have to find a leader for time being. Right? Have you heard about these things? I forgot there's also Lamport algorithm to find a leader in the network. Networking concepts. Okay, that's fine. So basically, from all the nodes, all the 10 nodes, we have to find a leader. How will you find a leader? So how will you find a leader in normal, if you have seen normal cartoon movies, how they make a villain? So if you have a bunch of villains, who is a main leader of the villains? Who has a super strength, right? The most powerful person becomes a super villain, and then all the subordinates are normal villains. So who is going to verify that particular block is the strongest node in the network? But in what sense? This strongest in terms of strength? Not exactly. The strongest in terms of computing power. So if your machine is i7, if my machine is i5, so maybe you're the strongest person. Let's pick you. Okay, so let's pick here Avinash. Let's say Avinash has a strongest CPU power. Avinash, now you are the node who is a leader. So the next block in the blockchain will be added by Avinash. All good, Avinash? You're not happy. You're able to add a block in a blockchain. Okay. I guess Avinash is ignoring us. Let's go with someone else. I don't want to give Avinash this opportunity. Let's go with Omkar. Omkar, you are getting a chance to add a block in a blockchain. Happy?
Yeah.
And for that, Omkar, you have to spend around 10 minutes running your machine continuously to verify the transaction. To do something, of course, verifying transaction is very easy. It will take around 1 or 2 seconds to verify transaction. But Omkar, you have to spend around 10 minutes running your machine, and then you can add a block in a blockchain.
Yeah.
Okay. Omkar, for this effort which you are taking now, I will give you some rewards.
Okay.
I will give you around 6.25 Bitcoins. Happy?
Yeah.
You know how much one Bitcoin cost? 45 lakh rupees. And you are receiving how much? Doesn't matter, it's a big amount. Don't calculate. It's a very big amount. You know, when you have that much amount in your bank, you don't check your bank balance. That's the amount you're going to receive, Omkar.
Yeah.
Not just the Bitcoins, you will also receive all the transaction fees. So let's say in this particular block, we have 10 transactions. So let's say I have sent 100 rupees to Rajesh, and then Amarjit has sent 10 rupees to Reshmi, and then Prashant has sent 1,000 rupees to Praveen. In this case, we have so many transactions, right? Every time we do a transaction, we'll pay you around 1% of the fee. Is that fine?
Yeah.
So Omkar, Bitcoins and transaction fee, you will get everything.
Yeah.
Now look how happy Omkar is. Now for the next block, Surya says, even I want to be a leader. The problem is, if everyone want to be a leader, how will you decide a leader? And that's where we'll play a small game. So we'll say, you fight. How will you fight? So I will say, okay, everyone, whoever finds the answer, let's say 25 into 125, whoever finds the right answer, you will win and you can add a block. Is that fine? Okay, so some kind of calculation. Again, Bitcoin doesn't work in that way. There's a different calculation happening, but some calculation you have to do. And normally, I predicted that. Thank you so much, Avinash, for going back on mute. Where was I was talking about? Okay, I remember I have this Gajni issue. Yeah, right. So I predicted, I predicted that it will take around 10 minutes for you to do that calculation. So if I say 125 into 25, calculate, and I predicted that it will take around it will take 10 minutes. So that's the difficulty level I predicted that you will be having. But then I realized now you people are not doing brain calculation. You're using calculator. So of course, calculator will not take 10 minutes to do that, right? So let me just complicate this calculation. So every time I will just predict in the network, if your machines, so if now currently you are using your brain to calculate, and now you started using calculator, I will just increase the difficulty level of the calculation. And then Venkatesh says, okay, now I will not be using a normal calculator. Let me get a laptop. Now, Reshmi, Amarjit, everyone copied the same thing. They got a laptop, and now everyone is using laptop to solve it. And now you're able to calculate the thing, whatever calculation is, in 8 minutes. And now I thought, hey, we have to do something. Let me increase difficulty level again. And again, I'm increasing difficulty level of the calculation. And now you got supercomputer. You got 10 CPUs to do that calculation. Now, since Atul is doing that now, everyone in the network, they got the supercomputer with 10 CPUs to do the calculation. Is it making sense, everyone? Okay, then Surya realized that, hey, instead of spending money on CPU, we can do the same thing on GPUs, which will do 10 times work of CPU in the same price. So Surya got a rack of GPUs, and now he's doing that calculation on those GPUs. And just because you are using high-end machines, it's my responsibility to increase the difficulty level of that question. Is it making sense? I know why I'm increasing difficulty level, because I want to make sure that every block will be added on average for after 10 minutes. See, it is possible that 2 blocks got added one after the other in next 2 minutes, but on average, we have to make sure that it should be 10 minutes. Everyone there with me? Okay. So anyone who adds a block in a blockchain is called a miner. But why this weird word? Why not we can simply say a calculator node or a verifier node? Why this word called miner? Remember when you talked about Omkar the first time, you will receive how many Bitcoins? 6.25. Right? Who is going to give you that Bitcoins? Amarjit? Of course not, right? Now those Bitcoins will be minted. You know what is minting means? Anyone? English word minting? Let's Google it.
Performing computation.
Sorry?
Performing the computation.
No, minting. Minting is English word. English minting.
Yeah.
M-I-N-T.
New forming, I think.
Okay, minting is Thapna, right?
No, finding someone like
Hold on.
finding something which is rare.
Miner is someone who is mining something unpredictable things, something like that.
Right.
Here also
Sorry, I'm using
miner
a
is
wrong
same
word.
thing.
Why I'm saying minting every time? My bad.
It is mining.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, mining. Sorry, Omkar. So what is mining means? Yeah, someone was saying that. Sorry, my bad. Someone was answering, right?
Yes, miner is someone who is mining without any predicted output actually.
Yeah.
It is something like he can get or he can lose, something like that.
Right. It's like coal mining. You mine to find coal, right?
Yes.
So just in the same way, when you talk about Bitcoin mining, it means the Bitcoin was not there in the network. You just minted some Bitcoins from the air, right? So that means in every block, we are getting new Bitcoins in the network. In total, there will be around 21 million Bitcoins in year 2040, if I'm not wrong. So at this point, we don't have all the access to the Bitcoins. But now question arises, why only 21 million? Why there's a hard stop? Why can't we just have 1 billion Bitcoins in the network?
To maintain the demand and supply.
Exactly.
Because of inflation.
Influence, yeah. So we want to maintain that, right? So the moment you have more scarcity, that's where the demand goes up. Why diamonds are so costly? Because they are scarce. I guess someone said that in the certain ring, right? There's a diamond in the certain rings. Am I that bad with geography? What if we can get all the diamonds on the earth? Everyone will be rich, right?
No, the value of the diamond will be very less.
Exactly. The more things you have, the moment you have something available, the price goes down. Example, the water which you drink now, it's free at your home and that's why you waste it. But while you're traveling to some places, you buy the same water by paying 20 rupees, 30 rupees in a bottle can. Because that is scarce on highway, right? So the moment you have something scarce, the price goes up. And that's why the number of Bitcoins in the network will be maximum 21 million. Yeah. And that too, we will achieve that by year 2040. So as of now, we don't have access to all the Bitcoins. Does it make sense? Okay. Now question arises, what type of calculation we do? So we don't do actually this type of calculation where we calculate 25 into 1. It's basically a guessing game. Remember we talked about hash values?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what I will do now is, again, this is not exactly what they do, but somewhere around. I will give you a hash value, or maybe I will say in my area, let's say in this country, or maybe in this world, we have 7 billion people, right? Everyone, I will give you a fingerprint and you have to go and find the person who has this fingerprint. Simple calculation. Does it make sense? Yeah.
Not
So they
the
do
same
that
thing.
with the help of a concept called hash values. So remember fingerprint, hash. And in the block, if you remember, okay, let me just share my screen again. Okay, which screen I'm sharing? Yeah. If you remember this thing, the block structure. Okay. So this is the difficult target which we were talking about. You know, how difficult something should be to solve a block. And then everything is changed with the help of these nouns. Of course, I want you to read about nouns. There's an amazing article. I will share the article in the chat after this session. But again, it will take another session just to talk about how the mining happens. Okay, someone is doing some. Okay, minting is producing creating for the first time, right? Okay, Anand says in the chat, it half every 4 years. That's right. So the number of Bitcoins you receive will be halved every 4 years. So when the first time when I was reading about Bitcoin 2017, it was 12.5. So before 2016, it was 25 Bitcoins. 2016, it became 12.5. 2020, it became 6.25. So maybe in 2024, we'll be having the next Bitcoin halving. So it will be what? 3.125? Okay, I guess doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. And then, in fact, we'll talk about altcoins later. Now it's a good time to actually start a discussion because we can have some input on Bitcoin here. Okay, what we have after this altcoins, right? Okay, let's talk about altcoin later. So that's from my side. It's time to open the discussion. If you want to add some points, anyone, if you have any questions.
So
Yes, Amarjit.
what in year 2040, as we discussed,
Yeah.
miners will stop getting rewards as a mining block.
Right.
Then what is the motivation for a miner to get participated in the network? Is there any?
I guess transaction fee.
Okay.
Now, since there will be less reward, we will be having less number of miners in the network, or they will not be spending that much of computing power in the network.
So maybe they have to invest of computing power, because if we do not have अगर हिंदी में मैं बोलूँ तो अगर कंप्यूटिंग पावर इन्वेस्ट नहीं करेंगे तो टाइम कम लगेगा ब्लॉक को ऐड करने पे, फिर वो सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट टाइप का कुछ हो जाए, क्योंकि मेंटेन कर रहे हैं कि 10 मिनट में एक ब्लॉक ऐड होना चाहिए, तो वो वाला चीज।
राइट। हाँ, तो वही बात है ना, जितने माइनर्स होंगे, जितना कंप्यूटिंग पावर होगा, उतना डिफिकल्टी लेवल ऊपर जाएगा, राइट? But what if we don't have that much of computing power? So of course, difficulty level should also be coming down. So there's no incentive. Of course, we don't, because the problem is, I forgot to mention this point. So whatever calculation which we are doing here, we are proving that a particular miner has worked so much to verify transaction, and that's why we say it's a proof of work. That much of work they have done. Now, there are a lot of people in the world who are opposing Bitcoin. Now, who are these people? Banks, Bill Gates, all
Governments.
these people who are dependent on the fiat currency, right? Now, what they are saying is proof of work consensus algorithm actually consumes lot of computing power, which results in a lot of electrical consumptions or electric consumption, not just to process, but also to cool down. Because remember, when we talk about multiple rigs, now everyone, if you search for, go to Google and search for mining machines, Bitcoin mining machines, you will see the images, right? Of one entire room full of rigs, GPUs. Imagine the normal laptop which we use. If you play a small game, the amount of heat it produces. Play a PUBG game on mobile phone, you will see how much heat it creates, right? In the same way, those servers need a lot of power to cool it down. So the amount of electricity it consumes, the amount of pollution it creates is something which everyone don't want. And that's why they are opposing Bitcoin. But then if you really think about it, using Bitcoin, what we are replacing? We are replacing banking system, right? We are replacing banks, we're replacing all the insurance companies and all those things. If we can replace them, think about how much energy they are consuming, a bank, an insurance company, how much paper they are wasting. So we can just, balancing it out.
Yes, but it is a public based on the public blockchain, not a private. So it is
Yeah,
something
right.
like anyone can enter in the network, and it will be the anonymous throughout the time. So our government will not track who is that actual person is. So taxation will not be alleged on that. So whenever you are considering Bitcoin as a legate property, it cannot law cannot depend on that, because it cannot be tracked. So it is illegal, but it is not legal.
Right. So
Something like that.
it's legal, but not a legal tender, right? That's the
Yes,
thing.
yes.
It's difficult to track.
Mm.
Maybe there should be some regulations, or maybe there should be some currency which can be tracked, which can be regulated. Maybe we can keep Bitcoin as a commodity like gold. Of course, we can't track gold as well. The same way we can't track Bitcoin. Maybe for transaction, we should find some better way.
So I have one question.
Yes.
I always used to heard Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency as a pseudo anonymous, not a complete anonymous.
Right.
But I didn't get any answer. I try to search some on browser, but I am not able to getting proper answer. How this is?
Pseudo-anonymous means you have an address, but that's not your name, but you still have an address. If I can track your address, ultimately, maybe I can track you. Example, let's say we did a transaction, and now I know what's your public address. Right. So with that public address, I can actually predict all the other transactions which you did. Right. So again, even I'm not sure how exactly you can track that, but it's trackable. It's not completely anonymous. It's not like anonymous person has sent anonymous amount to anonymous person. It's this address has sent some money to this address. At least we know the addresses, and we can backtrack it.
Yes. So we have only address in a blockchain. We have only address, and address is a has value.
Right.
But how we identify a person belonging to that address? That's my question.
Right. Not with the say straight. I mean, we don't have an option of backtracking it. Okay. How about this as the thing which we mentioned before? What if I send you, what if we do a transaction, you and me? Now I know your address, right? And now I also know that I have sent money to Amarjit. So maybe that's one way we can backtrack it. And since I'm not into public blockchain more, if anyone can help with that. KYC is done by the person with a bank, so address can be connected with person. Yeah, but then we're not doing KYC with bank. Oh, that's right. We do KYC with the wallets.
But all these wallets are centralized, but now we are moving to the decentralized exchange or decentralized.
Right. Good question. Mandar, make a note of it. Shastri sir, any answer for this? Rucha, Reshmi,
Can you repeat the question, please?
good. So the question is, how can we say that Bitcoin is not anonymous, it is pseudo-anonymous.
Yes.
How it is pseudo-anonymous? How can we track a person?
So we can track the person by using the public address itself.
Okay,
Public address is only the thing that we are sharing in the ledger.
right.
We are having only 2 addresses in any wallet. So public address is not that thing. It is just like a hexadecimal number. Okay.
Hmm.
So by that hexadecimal number, we can get the data information. So backtracking is nothing but actually, for example, you take a near protocol. They are producing the readable account ID nowadays. Near blockchain is there now. In near blockchain, they are giving the readable account ID, so we can read the account number.
Okay.
In the same way, this public key is there now. From that only we can backtrack it.
Okay. So maybe
Um,
let me just also find some other ways we can backtrack if there is.
Okay, sir.
Actually, I recently came across a scenario
Hmm.
where there was a ransomware attack, and we were trying to track the person who were exchanging the bitcoins.
Mhm.
So when we tried to backtrack, we came to know only that the certain Bitcoin addresses were illegally used by those people who were launching those attacks, but we never could reach them or the authors of the ransomware. So we understood it can be like tracked in such a way that it can be blacklisted and even can be said to be used illegally. But the anonymousness in that it will be retained. Like we will not be knowing the owner of the address. That is what we understood.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, that is one of the main features of the blockchain, that anonymity
Yeah.
that is built in. That's the main reason why, I mean, you can get to know the address, but you cannot never know who the person who owns that address.
Right. So the question
Uh,
here is, if we want to legalize a cryptocurrency in any country, I mean, especially the country like India, because the currency is always stable. The countries which are implementing Bitcoin, if they're using Bitcoin as a primary currency, it's because their own currency is not stable. But Indian currency is very stable, right? Replacing Indian currency with Bitcoin, I don't think government will ever support that as a legal tender, because again, as someone mentioned, it's difficult to do taxation on the cryptocurrencies.
Maybe instead of a public blockchain, probably they would be using a hybrid one where they know who's using what kind of thing, probably, if they want to implement something on a CDBC point of view kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what Indian government trying to implement nowadays. But we have here discussion is a international currency like a Bitcoin, interborder currency.
Right.
Actually, I don't think there is a way that government will allow the Bitcoin. They can have their own public cryptocurrency and their own network on that. Their own smart contract will be working on that as per their taxation rule, but they cannot directly allow the Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, CBDC is one of the things some of the countries are considering. But again, it needs to be seen whether. Anyway, I mean, they have. I mean, India has recently launched a digital currency, like I mean, their own government one. But adaptability across the thing needs to be seen. But CBDC is one thing which most of the central banks are considering to introduce in most of the countries. But adaptation across the globe, how does that work in the exchange, that needs to be seen, because CBDC is again from the blockchain perspective, it is a universal thing, the concept or the framework or the technology that is used. But if you want to make it as a universal, and then if you want to exchange with other countries CBDC, that's again a central bank digital currency, how the interoperability is going to be implemented, that is something which needs to be analyzed and seen.
Central bank digital currency. Okay. The virtual form of fiat currency. Okay.
So what is CDBC? As Anand sir talked about that.
I just searched about it. It says the term CDBC refers to the virtual form of fiat currency. CDBC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. Is it similar to stable coins, Ananda, or is it different?
No, stable coins are different. Stable coins are where it is pegged to the US dollar, which is
Right.
not with a very less fluctuation.
Right.
Where people, as if they doesn't want to invest in any kind of a cryptocurrency where huge fluctuations will be there, they can invest in the stable coins kind of thing.
Right.
But CBDC is something where the central banks is going to introduce their own from the country point of view, or the banks. It's just like RBI introducing their own CBDC kind of.
Okay. So that means CBDC is legal, but stable coins are not. Can we generalize that?
Again, I mean, stable coins, again, it depends on who, I mean, it's like a crypto only, but it is pegged to the
Right.
US dollar, basically. So the fluctuation will be pretty less.
So it is tradable, मतलब as we मतलब trade कर सकते हैं CDBC coins को.
So which one, CBDC?
Yeah.
As you said, na CDBC backed
Stable
by
coin.
yeah, stable.
Stablecoin is tradable, of course.
No, I guess he's talking about CBDC.
CBDC, no, it's something like it's a dollar. Again, you can't trade with the currencies as well. But again, depends on who's going to introduce that one. It depends on the central banks.
Okay.
But coming back to the original point, anonymity, that's one of the main features of the blockchain where they purposely introduced that one.
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, one more point I'd like to add. Actually, Bitcoin is not anonymous. It is a pseudonymous. Like it is written with a false name. Okay, it is not anonymous. Okay, it is written with a false name. Okay, and there is a Bitcoin analytic software is there. There we can track the original name, the original identity we can track.
I doubt we should be able to track. This is a point of discussion. So in fact, we'll keep this as an open question. Okay, can we track the person? Okay.
I mean, I would be interested to know that one.
Yes, I am
Yeah.
mostly interested. So,
Right.
so as Rasmi ma'am said,
Yeah, it would be helpful in many ways for other researchers also.
So what we'll do is that this is
Yes,
assignment for everyone. Okay. So after this session, go to Google and find a way. Can we track a person? Can we track a transaction? Can we track a person or the real owner of that transaction? So that will be a breakthrough.
As far as I know, it's not possible at this point
Yeah,
of time.
even I think it is
Yes.
not possible, but let's see.
If,
Some agencies use data science to contracts with the law enforcement agencies to track down criminals who use bitcoins. The first minted Bitcoin is fresh from miners is mostly bought by the exchanges, centralized exchanges, and these exchanges people buy. So when people buy, the KYC is done by the police. So the wallet, first address wallet, they know which person is attached to. So from the KYC itself, know which person bought which amount of Bitcoin. From that,
is
wallet
true with
onwards,
the
from that wallet onwards, the transaction would go to the another wallet. So even if they exchange the wallet, we can know that from the link it from the first wallet to the next wallet, which the transaction address is public in the blockchain itself. So if we know the root node, we can know that the later node where it is transferred. There is only one way to get a Bitcoin anonymously. Bitcoin credit card, that Bitcoin ATM. That's the only way to get Bitcoin anonymously, because it doesn't do KYC. It gives cash when we swipe the credit card. Monero is another blockchain which will give it's the only one which is anonymous totally. What it does is when you do a transaction, it does not directly send from the sender person A to person B. What it would do is it would send from person A to person X, and from person X it goes to person B. So it likewise A, B, C, D, E, F all will send to X, and X will send to the destination. So nobody will know who the sender is. It's like Tor. It would go to a 2, 3, 4 sender intermediaries. Then would go to the
Hawala, right? That's for the normal currency.
for Monero.
Now I'm seeing the demerits more than the merits.
Okay. Okay, so let's do some research on this. Everyone, after this session, just go to Google and search about this, and let's find a solution for this. Something with concrete things.
Sir, Naveen,
Yes,
sir.
Shastri.
Even we can try now also, sir. If anyone has been having the block, like public address, we can search that in blockchain.info. If you type that address and if you click it now, all the transactions and balance we are going to get. And from where what are the current cryptocurrencies he is holding.
But can we
Blockchain
track a
is-
person from the
Can we-
address?
Yeah, can we
Yes,
track
sir.
the person, Shastri sir?
Yes,
Yes.
like a person we cannot tell, but false name of that person.
No, actually, the discussion was to track the person. We may be knowing what transaction he's making and how much will be his balance. What the other updates on the particular account is fine, but we are saying whether he can be tracked to be a particular person.
Yeah, because transactions are open. You can see, I mean, you can see every second who transferred what, which address to which, and how much amount, everything that's open from the day one. The point is whether with that address, whether can we identify the person at this point of time? No, that's what I personally feel.
Yes, so that's what I feel now. We have a public Bitcoin public key as a मतलब public address, public key को हैश के द्वारा पास किया जाता है, तो हैश फंक्शन से पब्लिक ब्लॉकचेन का सॉरी बिटकॉइन एड्रेस मुझे मिलता है, बट हैश फंक्शन तो वन वे कन्वर्टेबल है, उसको तो मतलब वापस तो ला नहीं सकते हैं. दैट्स व्हाट आई फील कि वो हो नहीं सकता. बट एज ऑफ नाउ वी हैव अ सेंट्रलाइज्ड एक्सचेंज, तो वहां से कुछ आ सकता है कि ये पार्टिकुलर एड्रेस इस बंदे को बिलोंग करता है. दैट्स व्हाट आई नो.
If tracking would have been really possible, then all the authorities would have tried to track the person who is owning the oldest wallets to find out who Satoshi is.
Yeah, I was thinking of the same thing. If we can track, we can actually track who Satoshi Nakamoto.
All hackers are asking for the bitcoins actually, and no one got track actually because they do not store the IP address. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, most of the scams are happening these days. I mean, they just do that through, I mean, you still, you can't make out who's doing that one, because what they do is they're going to give you the whether BTC address or a Ethereum address. That's what you're going to get as a public address, public key. You're going to send your coins to them through that address, and then that's it. You can't know who the person you're sending it, whether it's a boy, girl, lady, person, you never know basically.
Okay, so we'll pause this discussion about the pseudo anonymity of the person or the transaction. Let's have some more questions apart from that.
Hi, sir. I have
Yes,
another
sir.
one question. Actually, you told about the complexity of calculations, right?
Right.
So, does the complexity of calculations is purposefully increased by the protocol?
Yes.
why
To
they
maintain the
increase?
average time.
What is the reason why they increase?
Because we want to make sure that we add a block in a blockchain after 10 minutes on average, so that it will have enough number of transactions. If the problem is, if we have the same level of difficulty, every day we are adding new miners in the system, right? And new
Yes.
miners will have a new rigs, they will have more rigs. So the moment you
Yes,
have
yes.
more computing power, the number of the time will decrease.
Okay.
Right. Or is it your question why it should be always 10 minutes? Why cannot
Yes.
we
Why
can
it
just
should
add
be
a
10 minutes?
good question. The panel is open for this question. Anyone? Why 10 minutes?
No, because the hackers will not get time to attack a 51% attack on Bitcoin, on blockchain. To maintain that 10 minutes, so the hacker will not get control over other nodes. And less than 10 minutes means minimum time we should give to the miner for verifying the transaction. It should not be less than 10 minutes. It should not be greater than 10 minutes. If it is greater than 10 minutes, hacker will get chance to compromise the nodes. More than 51% he might be compromised, then complete blockchain will be in the hand of hacker. So that is the reason only 10 minutes he will be given. So if that 10 minutes, in 10 minutes, he cannot reach that 51% compromisation of nodes.
Who defines that 10 minutes? What defines that 10 minutes?
That Bitcoin improvement process, there is a like there is a community. Yeah, protocol itself is containing this.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The proof of work.
So if our let's say there is every year there were new GPUs, right? The GPU the computation power of the GPU increases.
Right.
Then the time will increase. Then the complexity will increase, right? Depending on the computation power.
Right.
Even if you invent new GPUs, the computation level will increase.
Right. So what happened, in the initial days when Satoshi Nakamoto and their whatever team they were working with, they were using normal laptops for the computing. And then day by day, people thought, let's use more CPUs. So the complexity level went up. Then people started using GPUs, complexity level went up. And then there's a concept of ASIC, which is application specific circuits. I forgot the full form, system circuits, or circuit system. So there are special machines which are only made to run those calculations for Bitcoin, which are way faster than GPUs.
It will be like the TPUs.
Maybe.
The Google TPUs.
Not sure about TPUs, but yeah, if you got the point, yes.
Yeah, okay.
It is called ASIC, I guess. Bitcoin ASIC. Yeah, ASIC miner. So these are specially designed for Bitcoin mining, which are way faster than GPUs. And that's why the complexity level is going up.
So, but with this specialized circuits, we can't mine other coins.
Right. No, that's the point. So now, since you have raised that point, let me talk about the altcoins here. So there's a concept called altcoins. Now, altcoins are not, so altcoins are any coin which is not a Bitcoin. Now, after Bitcoin, there were a lot of issues with Bitcoins, right? One is it is very slow. Now, just because the design of the protocol is such that the number of transactions per second will be very low. And then we are saying that Bitcoin should compete with Visa, which is doing thousands of transactions per second. And that's why people thought, let's go for some other cryptocurrencies or altcoins. So we got some other altcoins as well, like we got Litecoin, which is faster than Bitcoin. But then in 2012, okay, what point? 13 or 14, there was a person called Vitalik Buterin who thought, instead of using this blockchain technology only for cryptocurrency, which only shares data, can we build applications on this blockchain network? And that's where we got Ethereum, which is not just a cryptocurrency, but also a platform to build application. We have some fancy terms there. We have smart contracts, dApps, which we'll see tomorrow. But these things are also cryptocurrencies. Ethereum is a crypto, Ether is a crypto. Then we got Ripple, Litecoin, Solana, Dash. I don't even know the other cryptocurrencies here, but till Solana I know. I guess Dash is also, I heard. So there are so many coins. In fact, in last 10 years, we got more than 10,000 cryptocurrencies. In fact, you can create your own cryptocurrency. And that's why the ICO got very famous, 2016. There's an ICO boom. Everyone want to have their own cryptocurrency. Yeah, so we can use alternate coins as well. We have different coins available and they have different transaction speed. Like as of now, Solana looks very promising. It's fast. It also has a platform, but I still doubt, because recently, I guess last month itself, the network was down for a few hours. If it is a decentralized network, how can it be down? That's the question people are asking now. But yeah, Praveen, you were saying something. I just went there.
No, that's all. Thank you for explanation. So what do you think about this XRP? So XRP is very fast, right? it is
Ripple,
used
right?
by
Yeah.
banks and it have cost less for transaction.
Right.
So is it centralized or decentralized?
Not sure, not read about XRP yet. I feel it's decentralized, but not sure. I've not read about XRP yet. For me, Solana looks very promising, but again, because of the recent downtime for a blockchain network, it becomes a spectacle now.
Sir, Solana works on proof of history.
Right.
Can you please explain what is
Not
proof
this
of
point.
history?
I'm not completely prepared for proof of history. I know something, but we'll talk about it once I'm completely prepared. As I mentioned, this is a trial batch. So
No issue, sir.
yeah, so we'll read more about how proof of history works. Currently, I
But
only know
I-
about proof of stake and proof of, proof of capacity also know. So there are three. Proof of work is the amount of work you do. Proof of stake is how much stake you have in the network. Proof of capacity is how much storage you can provide to the network. Yeah. Proof of history deals with timestamp, but not completely sure how it works.
So actually, I have another one question.
Yes,
so the
Praveen.
speed of the blockchain depends on the time that it is given for doing the calculations, right?
The amount of time it takes to confirm the transactions, the amount of time it takes to add a block in a blockchain. Example, in Bitcoin case, in 10 minutes, you can achieve that, right? After every 10 minutes, you can achieve a new block.
Yes.
But the finality achieves after 1 hour. What is finality here is, even if you add a block in a blockchain, let's say in the Bitcoin blockchain 10 minutes, you're still not sure if that block is confirmed. Because we have multiple miners, right? And maybe there are multiple miners who got the answer. They thought, hey, we will add a block in a blockchain. So at the same time, we might be having parallel blocks or parallel blockchains. So it wait for 6 more blocks to get added. So after 6 more block, the 6th block is confirmed now, which happened one hour back. So you can imagine the speed of Bitcoin. You can't receive the finality till that point. It's something like when you go to a shop and when you pay to Google Pay, you don't just go out, just it says send. You wait for the other person to receive, right? That's the finality.
Yes.
When you hear that sound from the Paytm machine, we have received 20 rupees. So that's the finality. In blockchain, it takes 1 hour.
So it takes 1 hour to confirm that transaction has really happened.
Yes.
But multiple blocks come at the parallelly same time. Then it will check for the number of transactions contained by that block, right? So each block can have the multiple transactions inside it. So it will select that block which is having the multiple transaction in it. Each block is computed by the nonce, which is calculated by the miners. That's the thing. And each will get a share of something. There is a calculation which will provide the share, what amount of share will be provided. So no one get zero amount. Something they will get.
Let's say if we have 3 parallel blockchain, so and we select only one blockchain out of it. So the other 2 blockchain, which is mined by other miners, they will receive something. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
There is a concept of hard fork and soft fork. It means multiple channels of blockchain will be created if.
Yeah. But let's say if we don't go for forking, let's say if we want to come back to the main blockchain, and then we are ignoring the other 2 blockchain here, will they receive the incentives? Is that?
Yeah, they do receive the incentive. What happens is the longest chain gets the connectivity from the longest chain point of view in terms of which particular new block is going to get which network. The one which doesn't have the longest network will be called as the orphan blocks, which will be eventually get what you say, like the obsolete basically. So the transactions that are there in those blocks, which are going to be added back to the mempool and then again gets added to the new block.
Right. So the miners who have verified those blocks and added in the blockchain which is not accepted, so they will not receive
still
anything,
they do
right?
get the incentive. Yeah.
Yes, small amount, but they do get.
Okay.
So
Okay. Do we have any
does it
calculation for that? I'm very curious to know that.
does it means the longer the blockchain, it has higher priority that it will be selected as the blockchain?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because after some time, if the particular chain or the network, if it's not getting added any block, that becomes an obsolete. The one which keeps on adding the network, I mean, the new blocks getting added to the new network, I mean, the existing set of chain, that will become the actual chain or the block, basically blocks of chain.
Oh, okay. So how does this minting happens in this process?
See, minting is different from mining, basically. Okay, so when we say mining, basically whoever gets, it's nothing but basically when you add a new block, you're mining basically. So that will be the incentive what is going to be given to the new miner. I mean, the miner who identifies the blocks by solving the puzzle, which we call it as a proof of work. I mean, finding the nonce, right? So that person is going to get the incentive. So he's going to become the miner, basically who validates the block and then adds to the network.
Oh, okay, fine. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'm still confused how much intensive incentives they get who are, I mean, the blocks which are removed from the parallel blocks. Okay, sure. Let me just do some research on this.
Actually, I tried mining, but even my computation power is low, I get incentives.
Okay, yeah, now that concept is called mining pool. So basically, you're not the individual miners, you are a part of a mining pool. Because the problem is, if you want to be a miner, you need to have huge amount of computing power, right? And not everyone have the access to it. So what we can do is, poor people like you and me, we can just come together and we can add our computing power. So we become a mining pool.
Okay.
So if we win a Bitcoin, if we win a block, then the incentives will be shared with everyone in the network.
Yes,
based amount how much computing power we share.
So there are specific third parties, right? So they do this work of organizing these computation sources.
Right, mining pool.
Okay, fine.
And they will get also their cut.
Yes,
So
they will also take their cut.
Yeah.
So I have one question.
Yes, Amajit.
So as we discussed, we take a longest chain from the network.
Right.
What's the other block they do not consider as the longest chain? What about the transaction contained by that block?
As far as I know, they will go back to the mempool, which will wait for the verification again for the next blocks.
Okay, and that means whatever transaction contained by that block is come back to a main pool.
Yeah.
Okay,
sir. Sir, tomorrow tell this concept some more clearly, sir.
Okay. Which one?
Mining that stuff, that rewards.
What I will do is I will share one link with you in the Discord. Just go through that, because the idea is not to spend more time on public blockchains. The idea is to move towards, because this entire thing is one book, how Bitcoin works, right? So don't worry if you don't understand this thing completely. Just notice the important terms.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, because the private blockchain doesn't have any mining thing.
Right.
I think for this, like maybe like Byzantine general problem is after explaining all this, like.
Yeah. We'll talk about Byzantines as well.
Yeah.
So we'll spend one more day on this. We'll talk about what is POW. We'll also talk about POH and then Byzantine general problem tomorrow. Great. Okay. Almost the time. Any last question for the day? And by the way, I loved all this discussion, so normally what happens, for me, my normal lifestyle, after 11 p.m., I feel very sleepy, which actually happened on Friday as well, because I was in that thing, right? Momentum. But Monday, Tuesday, I'm not feeling sleepy. all these discussions is keeping me awake till 1 p.m., 1 a.m. So yesterday also I slept around 1:30 because I was thinking about all these things, So this type of discussion actually helps in learning as well. In normal lectures, you get sleep in maybe half an hour. That too on Zoom. Just one request, if it is possible, if you can get your camera also on. It's weird to talk to blank screens and names. Looks like more of an
So
audio.
I do, but from my side, electricity is gone.
Probably they are expecting some bitcoins from you, Naveen.
Okay, sure. So I will be sending you some photos of bitcoins in the Discord.
If not Bitcoin, Satoshis would do good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next time I will accept the payments in bitcoins only. Nice. So thank you so much, everyone, for the discussion. See you tomorrow. Please be there. I'm enjoying this. I hope you're also enjoying. If you want to share your feedback, also do that. Maybe you can do that personally on me on Discord, or you can use Discord group. If you want something new, if you don't like something, if you're enjoying something, positive feedback, negative feedback, everything is welcome.
Thank you.